wanted to talk about today is self-directed teams and IT, and if it's a good idea. First, before we do anything else, let's define what a self-directed team is. There's lots of different definitions, a lot of different nuances that people put on, but I will give you my definition. So for me, a self-directed team is a team of empowered individuals with shared responsibility working towards a common goal, using communication and collaboration for decision making instead of reliance on day-to-day management. So what does that really mean? It means that this self-directed team is responsible for a project, an area, however you want to take a look at it. They're usually expert individuals that have the knowledge to be able to get it done, and as a manager, you recognize you just have to get out of their way. Where I really see that it shines in IT is that with business relationship management and value creation. What I mean by this is that a lot of times we spend time doing business relation management, but we do it at the highest level, with the VP level. That's great because if it's just one BRM and one team and that's all they have to do, they're not going to get into the depths that they need to. When you have a whole team working on it, however, you get a lot more synergies and a lot more work that people can do with it so that you can see value, all those quick wins that you need from the lowest level to the top. For example, I've used it before in some of my other videos, is the idea of in a commercial operations team that we ran, the team went on and shadowed the CSRs entering in quotes. That wouldn't have come up because the vice president of sales marketing wasn't aware there was even a problem. But because this team was responsible for helping this group, they went out of their way to figure out how they could do it. So they went and shadowed these people, found how long a quote was taking, realized that it was too long and everyone thought it was too long, and how to address it. Application platform development and support. The challenge you always have when you have an application or platform, let's use Salesforce as an example. You're always going to be struggling between the support part of the process and the development and new value. By having it in a self-directed team, this team can make that decision with the business on what has to happen and when. By empowering to do that, it becomes much easier not to be prioritizing just because of the squeaky wheel, and allows the decisions to be at a much more lower level by the team who recognizes what's really important at this point in time. And of course, agile project management is a keystone. This whole idea is a keystone to agile project management. If you don't have this idea of empowered individuals working as a team, agile doesn't work. Now, the reason why you want to do this, if all decisions run through an IT manager, a great deal of those quick wins will never be evident. As I discussed with that example within commercial operations, talking to the vice president of sales and marketing, if it was with me all the time, we would have never come to that conclusion because he wasn't aware there was a problem at that low level. If you don't do this, your teams aren't going to have any ownership. If you're making all the decisions and they're doing all the work, hey, it's great, but they don't have any ownership. I love to have my teams to feel ownership. I want them to feel responsible for these areas as completely as they can. This is the way you do that. And for IT, this is important because if you don't do this, you run the risk of micromanagement and alienating your expert employees. A lot of times when I come into a new organization and I've been asked to optimize the IT area, you have lots of experts. They're great at what they're doing already. They're just underutilized because their creativity hasn't been used as best as it can. So this whole idea of self-directed teams used properly will allow you to unlock that without alienating them and without telling them what to do on a day-to-day basis. And really at the end of the day, with all the stuff that IT has to do, even if you have a series of managers overseeing it, you don't have the time to do it. By unlocking this and empowering your lower level individuals and getting them with the collaboration tools and the communication tools that they need, you save yourself a whole bunch of angst that can be handled much better at a much lower level. Now, where this may all sound simple, it's not. Understand, self-directed teams will require a great deal of work to get started. It's not just cut them loose. If you do that, you're probably going to fail. You're going to find that employees not used to the idea are going to be uncomfortable. Employees that have been told what to do every day, all of a sudden don't have somebody telling them what to do and they have to make it up by themselves. That's difficult. Happens a lot, happened in my last role. You've got to work with that and make them more comfortable. Other leaders may want to talk to someone in charge. This happens all the time. Every IT manager has had the situation where you even have a prioritization mechanism, and the vice president of sales and marketing, for example, wants to jump in priority. And how he or she does that is come down and talk to the person in charge and tell you how important it is, so that you make that executive decision. So it's uncomfortable for the leaders as well as for the employees to really get used to this idea that things have to change differently. And lastly, management, us, need to trust the employees. And in a new situation, when you're going in for the first time, that's hard. You don't know the people. You don't know how they work. You don't have necessarily years of experience with them and know what they can and cannot do. But management needs to be able to trust to make this work out. So before you go down this path, the thing that I would suggest you remember is it's a transformation and will take time. You will need to work with the teams on collaborative decision making. This is not natural for places that haven't been doing Agile for a long time or one of the other frameworks that use collaborative decision making. You've got to make sure that an informal leader doesn't come up to take your place. This can happen. You can have a self-directed team and one of the strong personalities end up making the decisions for everybody because everyone allows them to, because it's the simplest answer, because they're used to being told what to do. So you've got to go out of your way, and that means being involved with these self-directed teams early on and not kibitzing when you don't have to, but helping direct it in the right mechanism so that you get away from that idea of a new informal leader just showing up. And the trick with everything, like with almost anything we do, is communicate, communicate, communicate. You got to communicate with your people. You got to communicate with leaders. You got to communicate all around on what you're trying to do. In my opinion, it's well worth it. You'll get lots of good results if you do it, but it takes time and energy to get it done right. But once done right, you're going to find that your IT team is much more agile, much more nimble to address the actual needs that are happening on a day-to-day basis, freeing you up to worry about the more strategic pieces that you have to worry and directing the teams as necessary to make sure you've got that business alignment at that overall enterprise level.